I'm Good Sports correspondent Rick Mulcahy with a look at what you'll see next on Good Sports. Tonight, we welcome George Patrick Duffy to the show. He'll look back at his endeavors and share them with us. George will talk about everything from his days playing basketball at Pawtucket High to his job coaching the St. Mary's CYO Basketball League. Also tonight, George will share his memories of the late coaching legend Ted McConnell.
I'm Bill Mulholland, and welcome to Good Sports. Each sports season, Good Sports dedicates one show to the glory years of Pawtucket sports. Tonight, Pawtucket sports legend George Patrick Duffy will reminisce about his endeavors in basketball, beginning with his high school career at Pawtucket High, his playing days with the Pawtucket Hobos, the basketball tournaments at the Pawtucket Boys and Girls Club, coaching St. Mary's of Pawtucket to the 1946 New England CYO title, his stint as publicity director of the NBA Providence Steamrollers team, and we will devote the final 5 minutes of the show to George's memories about Pawtucket coaching legend Ted McConnell, who passed away 2 weeks ago. Welcome to Good Sports, George.
Very glad to be here. Very glad, Bill.
Great to have you. I'm really looking forward to having you share some memories and bring back some good thoughts of years go by in the past of Pawtucket sports. Let's start with your high school career at Pawtucket High School. Give our Good Sports and audience a feeling of what it was like playing basketball in the crowds during 1938 to 1940 when you were at Pawtucket High.
Well, of course, in 1940, that was the last class before Shea High opened.
Before
before Shea High opened
Shea?
the following year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 1940, and the following year, Shea opened as Pawtucket West High School. There was so much competition for spots on the athletic teams because at that time, there was no Seekonk High School, there was no Bishop Feehan, there was no Lincoln High School, and just many people went to the school on Exchange Street, which is now Tolman. When I was there, it was Pawtucket High School. And it was so crowded that they had people going in the morning and people in the afternoon. But I was very fortunate to have good coaching. I only weighed 138 pounds, but I played football, basketball, and baseball. And very fortunately, in 1940, my people in my school named me the Athlete of the Year. I was the president of the student council, and in my own mind, I never considered myself to be a great athlete. I think I was a dedicated kid who never missed practice and would play with injuries. I didn't want to be off the field. That's the kind of a guy I was. And I was really not that big. I only weighed 138 pounds, and I was an all Rhode Island selection at left end, so. But that's
a lot for your determination.
Those are days going by. Yeah.
Those were the days with Pod Pierce, right?
Correct.
As far as football. Let's talk about the basketball career over at Pawtucket High. Play for the Red Jackets, especially your senior year, 38 to 1940. How did the Red Jackets do during your basketball career at Pawtucket High?
Well, in those days, the coach of the team was Robert Bruce Morris, who came to Pawtucket from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania State Teachers College. And before every season began, they would say that the team to beat is Pawtucket. Now, the 1940 team on which I was on won the state title by playing a 3-game series against Westerly, supposedly the big power, but we beat them in 2 games and then went on to the New England tournament. They had the New England tournament in those days. This one was played at the Exposition Building in Portland, Maine. We beat New Bedford in the opening round. We played the host team, Cheverus Academy of Portland, Maine, in the second game. We beat them, and we lost the championship game to Bridgeport Bassick High School of Bridgeport, Connecticut in the final game, a tremendous game. The important players on that team, of course, were Ernie Calverley, who became to be one of the great players in college.
Now, did you graduate? Did Ernie Calverley graduate in your class in 1940?
Ernie Calverley was a sophomore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was just everything. He was just a great player, unbelievable.
Yeah. What type of player was he in high school?
He was a one-hand shot coming down the middle. You know, you talk about the three-point shots now. I think that 75% of his shots would have been three-pointers because he came down and took a couple of strides over the middle of the floor and let ride, and he just was unbelievable. There were not too many big players around there, but we had a boy by the name of Red Blakey, and he's a doctor now. We had Vin Risciardi.
How big was Blakely?
I would say he was around 6'1". We thought he was a very big guy.
Okay.
We had Vin Risciardi, who was a tough guy under the boards. Henry Eathy, who went on to play for Providence College. Jim Tyrrell, who went on to play for Brown University. Paul Williams, an outstanding rebounder. I was happy to be among them. You know, my father-in-law used to say that I was on the team because my main job was to carry any cavalry shoes.
And so what was your role with the 1940 team that won the state title and went into the New England tournament?
Well, I had several roles. I think most of the time I was the sixth man. Sometimes I started. But having been a football player, we played some tough games like down in Newport against Rogers in a small building. And they started to bump us around, and the coach would say, "Okay, Duffy, you're a football player. Get on the court. And the
Show 'em a
next
little
time
muscle."
someone comes near you, knock them into the wall." But I was a two-hand set shot. I was an excellent foul shooter. But I think, like I started out saying, I was so dedicated, it was unbelievable. And actually, now I'm 77. I don't know how much of that has changed, because anything I get into in sports, I'm just totally in it all the way. And I was that way in high school.
Now, when you were playing the games was it Exchange Street at the
we
Tolman
played
High School?
We played at the same Exchange Street building that Tolman is in now, and they had to lock the door about 6 o'clock because they could not get any more people in.
For what time would the game start?
The game would start maybe at 7:30.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, it just was. The crowds were so large, and the enthusiasm was so great because we had a great team. We won a lot of games, and you know, in my particular case, I had to prove that I was a player because I came from St. Mary's, a Catholic school, and they had a high-powered junior high school program in those days, and if you came from a Catholic school, it was not easy to break in. Now, I wound up playing as a senior and playing a lot. I had a lot of minutes, I had a lot of important points, and I played well. But when I started out, there were so many players, as I pointed out at the start, that I was on what they call the sub-junior varsity. Now, I'm not talking about the junior varsity, I'm talking about the sub-junior varsity. We played at 4:30 in the afternoon with nobody in the building. But I progressed from there and impressed the coach, Bob Morris, who later became one of my all-time friends. And there it was. I finally made the varsity.
And then, so in a lot of times, after they had a lot of high school tournaments and post-high school tournaments, the Pawtucket Boys Club played host to many of these great tournaments, and those were some of the times that you could see some of the great players in the New England area. Talk a little bit about the tournaments that the Pawtucket Boys Club used to host.
Well, the Pawtucket Boys Club on East Avenue, the original Boys Club, in my mind, started hundreds of players and various degrees of basketball ability off. They had some great tournaments. They had some, great teams. They had the Boys Club alumni team with Hank Soar and Joe Hardy and Charlie Swanson and Joe Salicki, just to mention a few. And those teams traveled by bus. They played all over New England. Then we had the SS All-Stars with Eddie Glancy. Tom Duffy played for that team. And then we had the Hobos. We had a team called the Pawtucket Newsies. We had a team called the Big Five. We had a team named the Pawtucket Collegians in the New England League. And I say that all the players, with a few exceptions, of course, all of them got their start down in East Avenue.
Is that right?
They used to run a tournament down there that was cut out by the Interscholastic League, and in my mind, it was really a cruel thing to do. Each year, all the people who were seniors were excluded from this tournament. They had to play in the senior tournament. They had a junior tournament, and all the players who would play on the high school team the next season were eligible to play in that tournament. They wore the high school uniforms. The coaches were there. They cut it out because of playing out of season, so to speak. That was one of the great tournaments of all time. I remember as a junior in high school, it meant so much to me to go to the Boys Club and play in that tournament. But, I could talk forever about the Boys Club because as a young man, when I got interested in basketball, John Kolek and later on Mike Pappas, the people at the Boys Club, Charlie Messier, they used to say, "This Duffy kid is wacky. The building's closing at 9 o'clock and he won't leave."
Still shooting hoops, right?
He won't leave.
Let's move on. You're still playing now. Pawtucket Hobos were synonymous with post-high school basketball in Pawtucket in the 1940s and 50s. How did the team start, and who are some of the charter members? And we've got a great photo coming up. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the Pawtucket Hobos was another thing that I guess I founded. Actually, we call it the Hobos, and we needed some uniforms. So Billy Pappas, a lifetime friend who I visit from time to time, he's
Good
at
man.
home, a
Yeah.
great person, one of the best. He and I went to Boston shopping around, and we found these hats, we found these jerseys, and we found these ragged old pants in a clothing store.
And George, we got a photo of this. Why don't you introduce the players that we see up here first, and then we
Okay,
can continue on.
this is the original team. Buster Mills, Jim Durkin, Tom Weatherspoon, Bob Caveney, and George Patrick Duffy. Jim Saborin, Francis Whiffer Healy, who later played minor league baseball, George Hanna, Joe Montero, and Ray McCarthy. Now those are the players that were on the original team.
Yeah, look at those uniforms. So that's what you and Billy Pappas picked out when you went down to Boston?
You know, Billy and I went to this place in Boston, right off the city, and I finally negotiated. I said, how much are these things? He said, $325. And Billy and I got over in the corner. I said, I haven't seen $325 in years. Anyway, somehow we paid for the uniforms.
So how did it come about? I mean, how did the thought process come to that you're going to dress like hobos? And what was the reaction when you entered an opposing team's gymnasium coming out looking like that?
Well, the teams that we played against got a kick out of it when it came in. We didn't have really a great act like the Harlem Globetrotters. But I did a lot of public relations on this team, and we were well known all over New England, and we played a lot of places, and we went away to New Hampshire and Vermont, White River Junction, Claremont, New Hampshire, and we played weekends and got a few dollars, and then come home, and everybody went back to work on Monday. But
so that was barnstorming, right? Basically?
yeah, it was basically barnstorming, and the guys who were there became part of it and enjoyed it. Now, that team you saw on the picture there later was followed up by what we call the original, not the original, but the team that gained the most glamour, so to speak. And the team won a big tournament, an AAU tournament in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. We became heroes in that town. We were not supposed to do anything. We drove to Pittsfield and came home on Thursday. We drove to Pittsfield on Friday and came home. We drove to Pittsfield, and that's before you had a lot of highways. And we won the tournament, and guys like Joe Montero and Tom Whipple and Bob Caveney and Mike Pappas and Ray
All Pawtucket
McCarthy,
boys, right?
all guys. I'll give you the names of that team because they deserve to be mentioned. Bob Caveney, Tom Whipple, Mike Pappas, Joe Montero, Buster Mills, Ray McCarthy, and yours truly, George Patrick Duffy. That was a great, great team that won a lot of tournaments in Pawtucket. They lost some tournaments, but we played a lot of games, and we gave everybody the money's worth. We didn't win all games. In fact, we were run out of a lot of buildings. We played up in Claremont, New Hampshire one time. I sent too much publicity because they brought in 5 or 6 college players with us, assumed names.
Oh.
They ran us right out of the building.
Yeah. Now, who used to do the driving back and forth to some of these tournaments? Because you've got legendary stories about your driving abilities back then, Mr. Duffy.
Well, I have to say that a lot of people, even to this day, don't like to ride with me. But I tell you what, I don't want to dwell on it too long, but most of the people who worry about my driving, when I see their cars, they have bumps all over them, and I say, my car doesn't have any dents in it. Why? They say, we're going too fast. But I did a lot of driving. I drove a lot of places. But, you know, driving wasn't a big deal with me. As a hockey broadcaster with the Providence Reds, it was nothing for me to drive to Pittsburgh and Buffalo or Indianapolis or Hershey and come back the same night. So a lot of guys actually didn't feel like riding with me, but I didn't get anybody hurt.
Yeah. Now let's move on to your coaching career. And you coached many things, but one of the things that you coached, the St. Mary's of Pawtucket CYO basketball team in 1946. You coached them to a glorious season by capturing the state and New England titles and moving on to the Nationals at New York City. Why don't you reminisce about that team?
Well, that was a great team. And I'd like to mention the fact that we had a big send-off when we went to New York after we won the Rhode Island and New England championship. In those days, the CYO sent the champion to New York. We played at Mount Carmel in New York. And the players on that team were Bobby O'Neill, Jimmy Durkin, Joe McKenna, Robert Costello, Bobby Faniff, Joe McGuire, Jackie Lennon, John Duffy, no relation, David Payne, Joe Rankin, and John Carroll.
Mr. Duffy, we've got this picture up now on the TV set. What is this that we're looking at?
This is the send-off going to New York to play. Actually, they call it a tournament along the way, but actually it wasn't a tournament. We played against Mount Carmel in New York, and we lost the game, in a very close game. Yeah. But we played very well, and the crowd liked us very much. Right. Now,
I think this came from what, the St. Mary's. This came from the Times. When we get back to this photo here and show the bottom half right underneath of what it says, I think that's, and it also shows a couple of your stars that you had there too, George.
Yeah, the top picture is Bobby Costello, who was our tall guy and rebounder, and the person below is Jimmy Durkin, who played for us and became one of the great all-time stars at Pawtucket West High School.
So St. Mary's quintet edged. Is that where you lost in the Nationals? We
lost the game. That team at one time won 29 consecutive games. We used to practice at the Boys Club every day. The Boys Club was wonderful to us. This is why I've been associated with them for 60 years. It's just been a wonderful organization. But hey, we had a great season with St. Mary's. The kids enjoyed it. And I think one of the sidelights, which is important to mention, is that we stayed on Broadway in New York at the Abbey Hotel for 7 days.
Did you?
Yes.
Now, who picked up that cost?
Well, I understand that a man from Providence was in the ownership of the hotel, and we took along a man named Archie Cardillo with us. He weighed 350 pounds, and he just gave all his strength to us. He was with us all the time. But it was a great thrill for those young people to go to New York. Nowadays, you see young people going to Japan, to Germany. Then it was a big thing to go to New York, and we had a great time. I had a great time myself.
Wonderful. And now let's now how about the Pawtucket Providence Steamrollers? Now there was a definite Pawtucket flavor on the Providence Steamrollers, which played in the NBA from 1946 through 1949, with Hank Saw coaching the team for a half season, Ernie Calvary playing for the team, and with your position as publicity director. Talk about the team, the players, and the staff that you had back then, George.
Well, I think the important thing to mention here is that I mentioned before the Boys Club alumni, the Collegians, and the SS All-Stars. I was associated with them, with Eddie Addison was the coach, and Nino Caliber, who I played ball with in the Boys Club for years. Those teams all played what they call professional basketball in a sense. I don't think the Boys Club alumni did, but the others did. My point is that the one and only professional team from the beginning was the Providence Steamrollers, for one reason, that they played 60 games and they played basketball for a living. The other people played and then went back to work on Monday morning like the Hobos. The Providence Steamrollers in 1946-47 began a series of times in what was then the Basketball Association of America. It later became the National Basketball Association when it merged with a league from the West called the National Basketball League. We were in the league in 46, 47, 47, 48, and 48, and 49, and then we dropped out of the league. But at the beginning, this was like a Pawtucket team because Calvary was there. The coach was Robert Bruce Morris, who came from the high school.
Right?
He took the team over. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had a flavor. Earl Shannon, who played at Pawtucket High School, was on the team. Don Martin from Newport played at De La Salle. Bob Shea from URI. George Mearns from Westerly High School. We later got some big guys named Hank Beenders and George Nostrand, but the bulk of the team at the beginning belonged to the city of Pawtucket or to Rhode Island in general. And Calvary did well. He led the league in assists the first year when we played 60 games. We won 28 and lost 32. We almost made the playoffs. We're edged out by the New York Knicks. And if anybody's wondering about, people don't believe that Providence was in the league. But the teams in the division we were playing in was Washington, coached by Red Auerbach, Philadelphia, the New York Knicks, the Providence Steamrollers, the Toronto Huskies, and the Boston Celtics.
Big time.
And we played the Boston Celtics on opening night on November 2nd, 1946, and we beat the Boston Celtics.
Did you play at the Garden or the Auditorium?
No, we played at the Auditorium on North Main
did
Street.
you?
And in that first year, our record against Boston was 5-1. Over the 3 years, our record against Boston was 10-1 and 10 lost. But people will not believe that a team from Providence played and beat the Boston Celtics, but we did.
Yeah, that's a big part of Pawtucket history. Now, you were also in attendance at Madison Square Garden when former Pawtucket High standout Ernie Calvary hit the shot heard round the world for URI and the NIT. What was the atmosphere of the game? And then set up that shot. And we've got a great picture of Ernie Calvary in the paper about that. But first, what was the atmosphere? Tell us how it all led up to it, and then set up the shot for us, Mr. Duffy.
Could I say one more thing about the steamroller
sure.
situation?
Yeah, of
and
course.
I'll leave it quickly.
Yeah.
The second year, our good friend and the wonderful, wonderful guy, Hank Saw, took over the coaching of the Providence Steamrollers in the what was then the Basketball Association of America. So I don't want to leave Hank out because he's a great friend.
Yeah, well, in fact, Hank was on. We did a four-part series with Hank, and part of the series was his basketball career, and he talked about at length the Steamrollers and what he did half the season, and then he moved on to something else. So real character, that's right. I think that's important. Let's get back to Ernie Calvary's shot, and so set it up. The URI went off to the NIT that year, 1946?
In those days, the NIT was the tournament. The NCAA really hadn't come forth to be a big tournament yet. The NIT was something people want to get in. And Rhode Island, in March of 1946, earned a berth, the last team selected, and we played against, I say we, because I was covering those games for the Pawtucket Times, and after Ernie made that shot, I had a front page byline.
Oh, did you?
Yes, that I covered the game and had a front page byline in what was then the Pawtucket Times. URI, it was Rhode Island State then.
Yeah.
It's now URI, but it was Rhode Island State then. And Frank Keeney was the coach, and they played racehorse basketball, firehouse basketball.
Was it the first game of the season?
We played first game, our game, at Madison Square Garden. The old Madison Square Garden, not the new one. We played Bowling Green of Ohio. And they had one of the first big guys around, Don Otten. He was a giant. Anyway, it came down to the last 2 seconds of the game, and URI, not URI, but Rhode Island State was trailing by 2 points. And the ball was out of bounds, and Bob Shea, who later joined Ernie with the Steamrollers, passed the ball into Ernie, and he was 58 feet from the basket. He threw it 2 hands, and bang, as the gun went off, the horn into the basket, tie game. We ultimately won that game in overtime. We beat Muhlenberg, Pennsylvania, and we reached the championship final.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, and lost to Kentucky 46-45. It was a heartbreaking loss for Rhode Island State, but a great team we played. Ernie Calvary, however, was named the most valuable player of the tournament, despite the fact that Kentucky defeated Rhode Island.
And why did they call it the shot heard round the world?
Well, up to that point, there have been a lot of shots. If you watch basketball, you know there have been a lot of shots. And that was, at that time, sort of unheard of. On top of it, too, the shot was made in the media capital of the world. If he made that shot in Peoria, Illinois, it may not have made a mistake, but he made that shot in New York City, the media capital of the universe, and it just went, the notice of it went worldwide. And every so often, if you're watching TV and watching some of these things, it will come back on the screen. And Marty Glickman, who was a great broadcaster for the New York Knicks for years, he was one of the greatest. He always calls that the greatest thrill that he's ever had broadcasting. Yeah. But it was something. But if you showed the picture, there was a big surge of people. We mentioned Nino Calabro.
Yep.
A boy named Tommy Dean. Tommy Dean went out there. I think Junior Malucci was there too. They were all fans. They ran out on the floor despite the fact that the security people from the Garden didn't want them out there.
Duffy. Yeah.
That's when Ernie was picked up by the people from Rhode Island. It was a great moment. It's a moment I will cherish forever.
And now we've got a little less than 5 minutes left in the show, and a very good personal friend of yours and one of the great coaching legends in Pawtucket's great sports history, Ted McConnell, passed away 2 weeks ago. Ted was on the show back last spring with Teddy Dolan, reminiscing about the Toman teams and the rest. why don't you give some of your personal thoughts about Ted and his coaching career and the athlete that he was, Mr. Duffy?
Well, Bill, you know, I could stay here until midnight talking about Ted and his coaching and his playing and go on, but I think one of the most important things with my relationship with Ted McConnell, that he was such a beautiful human. There were so many times that I met him, and sometimes you meet people and they have bad days, so to speak, and when they speak to you, you get the impression they don't want to talk to you. Ted was never that way. Ted was always very friendly. I met him many times. He talked about many things. He was a great sports fan. He was a great player. I can remember seeing him play in 1937 for St. Raphael when he was just a young man. Then I knew he was going to be a star. Then I saw him play first base in baseball, and I saw the way he handled a glove. And I said to myself, if this kid can hit, he'll be in the big leagues. He went on to college and starred, and then he went on to become a recruiting person for St. Anselm's College in Manchester, New Hampshire. I can remember Ted McConnell in one situation. We used to laugh about it, and now that he has passed away, I keep it as one of the great moments of the memories I've had, and I've really had a lot of them. You know, my career summary is 6 pages long. One time I gave it to a man looking for a job. He said to his assistant, "We're not going to hire this guy. Look at this. He couldn't hold a job." But I was sort of a freelance guy who took on everything. But after the war had officially ended in 1945, we had our basketball team together. I don't believe it was the Hobos yet, but we were requested to bring a bunch of basketball players down to Quonset Point to a place called Byros Gym. The gym was so large, it was unbelievable. We didn't have enough players, so I got a hold of Ted, and I said, "Will you play for us?" He said, "No, I told you I don't want to play." I said, "We don't have enough players, Ted." I said, "You know, you're my cousin." He said, "Yeah, I know you're my cousin." We always called each other cousin. Anyway, we went down to Quonset and we played. I think we had 7 players. The place was so big, and the Quonset base was still very active. They had guys there who were still able to play the game of basketball, and they practiced a lot. Anyway, the game went up and down, up and down. Ted was exhausted. He was the only one rebounding. The rest of us were standing around. At the end of the game, we get out to outside the gym. We lost the game by a large margin. We get outside the gym, and he said, "George, I want to talk to you." He was all sweated up, and he said, "I will never play for you again." He says, "I like you, but I'll never play for you again." And he got in the car, and before he got in, he said, "And the second thing is, I have to ride to Pawtucket with you, and that may be worse than playing the game." Anyway, he never played again, but we always remained friendly, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. He was in whatever he was in. If it was softball, if it was baseball, if it was basketball, he was good.
Yeah.
He was good, but he didn't walk around like a guy who needed an extra size hat. He was a beautiful human, and I'm going to miss him very much.
Yeah, we have a little less than a minute left, and he had such a dry sense of humor. When he was on with Teddy Dolan last spring, he talked about his infielders, second baseman and shortstop, who were 300 batters, 150 for each. And so he had that type of sense of humor that, I mean, he could put people at ease. He always, and as Teddy Dolan was saying, he was always looking at the best part. One instance was when outfielder had a terrible day, struck out 3 times, made 2 or 3 errors in the outfield, and so all the players were wondering, how's Coach McConnell going to go over and put a positive role on this one? He says, "Was your girlfriend there today, George?" He says, "No." Well, that's a good part of it then. So he always looked upon it as a good part. George, we ran out of time, as I know we would. You know, we just flew through all of this here. Thanks for sharing your memories about Pawtucket sports and basketball, and also about Ted McConnell, who will greatly be missed by everyone in the sports area of Pawtucket. And we look forward to coming back and sharing some memories on some more good sports.
Bill, it's been very wonderful being here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Mr. Duffy. I'm Bill Mulholland for Good Sports. Good night.